Okay.
We are live.
Now we're, okay, so now now Tanya's other thing. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Here we are. It's Tuesday, February 21st, and we're at the Senate Democratic Caucus. Thank you, everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. Thank you to Senator White for fabulous snacks, which is more than snacks. It's almost lunch, which I'm going to go and get a bite of. So they're at the round table. And today we are going to first address a bill that is getting in its final gestation period in Senate government operations. Senator Hardy is going to lead us in a discussion of ranked choice voting, and then we're going to have a demonstration of how it works with Senator Vyhovsky leading us in that. And we're going to challenge ourselves and have additional aspects of it up on Zoom, up on the screen, the voting piece. So Senator Hardy, take it away. And then if we have time, we'll go through and have chairs update us on things that are getting voted out this week. Senator Hardy.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. So the Senate Government Operations Committee is working on a bill related to ranked choice voting. And right now it is focused on the 2024 presidential primary only. So just basically pilot project in ranked choice voting at the statewide level. And I'm not going to go into the details of the bill because it's not complete yet, and those are subject to change. And so I don't want to say something that might end up changing. But the committee thought that it might be helpful for us to have a demo of how ranked choice voting works so that you all can understand how it works. And every time the committee gets testimony about how ranked choice voting works, people use the example of voting on some kind of food. We've heard ice cream, we've heard cupcakes, we've heard cookies, and various usually sweet things. So we thought it might be fun and informative to do it with the caucus, so you can all understand and start to understand how ranked choice voting might work, because it sounds more complicated than it is. And so I'm going to turn it over to Senator Vyhovsky, who has set up the demo for us today. Thanks.
Awesome. Yes. I'm going to go pull up our screen presentation, but I have set up a demo. So there's ice cream, because what better thing to do in Vermont if we're going to practice on ranked choice voting than vote on Ben and Jerry's. So there's non-dairy and regular ice cream in the back that you can absolutely help yourself to. I'm going to go over just a super brief overview of what it is, how we do it. Yes, if you can share my PowerPoint, that would be awesome. I'll share. And then we're going to do it. We have the option of having an electronic ballot or a paper ballot, whichever people are more comfortable with. And we don't have to make a unanimous choice. You can make an individual choice as to whether you want an electronic ballot or a paper ballot. But now I'm just holding space until my presentation is on the screen.
Okay, we're working on it.
And feel free to grab ice cream.
Waiting for it to load.
Okay. So, as people may know, some Vermont voters are already using ranked choice voting. And a bunch of states, 5 states nationwide use it for virtually all their statewide elections. And there's a bunch of municipalities across the world that use it as well. Here we go. We're going to skip right to slide 3. I'm going to play a little video about how the votes are calculated, and then we're going to vote.
We make it full screen.
Maybe.
Nope.
No.
Okay, hold on, we're coming. We're getting sound too.
This is more difficult than ranked choice.
It is more difficult than ranked choice voting. I could probably hand out ballots and you'd all be fine without the explanation.
We can't just put it in dispatch.
I have paper too. That's why I brought both.
Should we work off?
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
he have the computers?
I do.
So for some unknown reason, this isn't wanting to. What?
Because you don't have the right hardware installed.
I don't have the right hardware installed.
Apologies.
I apologize. I feel like I have the right hardware inside, but hey. doesn't matter. So while we're waiting, Ruth, is there anything else you'd like to add about different types of RCV? Or how many jurisdictions? There are over 50 jurisdictions in the country and several other countries, but in our country, we have over 50 jurisdictions, cities, states for different types of elections.
No, go ahead.
I'm just a segue.
Okay, sorry, I was got dispatched with my neighbor here. Yes, there are already a number of jurisdictions, I think as both Senator Clarkson and Senator Bukowski mentioned. The state of Maine uses ranked choice voting for their statewide elections, and we have had the Secretary of State from the state of Maine in to testify about how it works there. They are a really good comparison because they also have a lot of small towns, including some towns that are hand-count towns. So we're trying to learn from what they've done, and they've done a number of elections already statewide. There also the state of Alaska has statewide ranked choice voting. And there are other jurisdictions. We heard some excellent testimony from the clerk of Utah County in Utah, which is the largest county in Utah. And Utah uses ranked choice voting for their countywide elections, and I believe for some other elections too. Then there are some states in the South that use ranked choice voting for military and overseas voters because they have a threshold that candidates have to get 43% to win.
We're getting there.
So you might recall the Georgia Senate elections where there were runoff elections a few weeks later after the Senate, the first election, the general election. And in order to make sure that military and overseas voters get their vote cast and counted in both the general election and then in a potential runoff election, they use ranked choice voting for those military and overseas ballots and have for a long time, actually. So it's not a new kind of voting. It's readily used in lots of places. There are a number of municipalities, I think over 50 municipalities, some in Massachusetts that have been using it for decades. It actually was the most common way to vote until the 1950s. And it was changed in the 1950s in large part actually as a way to disenfranchise voters. So re-implementing ranked choice voting is a way to re-enfranchise many voters whose votes are wasted if they don't vote for a candidate that is one of the top candidates, or a candidate may have dropped out in the case of the presidential election, because as you know, we vote after a number of other states have already voted. And so by the time Vermont votes, some of those candidates will have dropped out. So if you voted for somebody who dropped out, your vote doesn't count. But if ranked choice voting were in play, then your second or third choice would still count in the presidential election.
And the other huge plus for ranked choice voting in this very divisive time is that by all accounts, this reduces the rancor in elections, because candidates have to appeal to voters because they want to be a second or third choice.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure, so there's a lot less negativity in the election process, which is one of the major sort of compelling reasons. Whoops,
Oh, no, it's fine. It's there.
It's
I can
there,
get it.
okay.
I was just trying to see if I could do
Are
it
you
in an
ready,
easier
Tony?
way.
So we can
I
turn
think
it over.
we're ready.
I think I'm ready whenever you are ready.
I will sit down for your demo.
Okay. Here is my demo.
There's a new way for New Yorkers to have their say in city elections. A way that gives voters more choices and can lead to more diverse winners. It's called ranked choice voting. 74% of New York voters chose to use it in primary and special elections for city offices: mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. You won't see ranked choice voting in general elections or elections for state or national offices. But in ranked choice voting elections, you can now rank up to 5 of your favorite candidates for each office. Here's how ranked choice voting works. On your ballot, you'll see candidates listed in rows and numbered rankings in columns. Pick your first choice and completely fill in the oval next to their name under the first column. Like always, you can just vote for your one favorite candidate and submit your ballot. But you might like several people. If you have a second choice, fill in the oval next to their name under the second column. Do the same thing for your third, fourth, and fifth choices if you have them. A few don'ts. Don't rank the same candidate more than once. It won't help them, and it takes away your chance to rank the others who are running. Don't give the same rank to multiple candidates. It could disqualify your ballot. Don't worry. This is a new process, and you can always ask a poll worker for help, or for a new ballot if you make a mistake. So, how do ballots get counted with ranked choice voting? If one candidate gets more than 50% of everyone's first choice votes, they win the election right away. That's it. If no candidate gets more than 50%, ballots will be counted in rounds. Round by round, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. So, if your top-rated candidate is eliminated, your vote goes to your next highest choice. This keeps going until only 2 candidates remain. The person with the most votes wins. Ranked choice voting is already popular in many cities around the country because voters find that it helps more voices be heard. Now it's our turn. Get answers to your questions and learn more at nyccfb.info/RCV.
That's my brief video. If you want to do an electronic ballot, you can use your device and scan that QR code and it'll take you right to an electronic ballot. But if you want a paper ballot, I'm happy to bring you one. Just let me know.
Ooh, this is so easy.
How do we do so easy?
So you take your camera.
Here
There
you
you
are.
are. You should have it already. Well, you've had trouble with QR codes in the past. You just use your camera.
No, just not the best one. Yes.
How do we do it?
Take a picture and you'll see a little window appear.
Okay, so what do I do?
Here's the deal, though.
I don't even know.
It's here, you three, is this work?
Well, hey, you can help yourself.
And then what do I do?
On that table.
I tried the chair.
Paper.
Okay, and then now we're poised.
To write your honor.
Okay.
I did bring my phone, sorry.
Great, okay, so New York City used this ranked choice voting. That little video was part of their education system in New York City this last fall. And it worked. They spent a bomb on education, but it worked very well.
Only 4.
What?
A good enough voted in that
A
election.
good enough vote, so it's incredibly easy.
Okay.
There's no writing.
There's no write-in.
I apologize.
Okay, so Tanya, what are we doing next?
Well, once I'm pulling up another link so that we can actually watch our votes come in. So far, Chair.
So wait a minute, do people have to now go and choose their ice cream?
They can go and have whatever ice cream they would like.
Okay. So to be an educated voter, you need to try all 5 flavors. Okay.
The real cost is the ice cream at the end of voting.
And if you have a paper ballot, I will enter the information into the electronic system. I will be your election official. I'm happy to take it. You ready? Thank you.
Chair Garcia coming right now.
I want to be American.
It's American.
American.
What if people?
Wow.
Are you back?
Oh, it's a fraud. It's a fraud. I really
This
want
is my flavor.
I don't know how to make this.
I thought Jerry Garcia's name was Jerry.
No matter how hard I try.
Yeah, my mom used to have a photo of Jerry Garcia and she would go, that's
You can watch the results coming in.
And I would say, so when I learned that his name was in fact Jerry, it was a moment of
I
recognition.
don't think we actually have that.
I love this.
I will.
They did an hour once.
I think it's an approach, you need to try everything.
Oh, I truly believe the hospitals.
I will not be forcing anyone to use your right.
It was just all, like, that
I
was
want
just
to
how.
know that's for your Sherry Garcia.
See why? Oh, no.
Sherry Garcia's just gonna-
Jerry Garcia's coming.
I'm still trying to put in the photos over here, so bear with me.
You're handing that in?
Well, this is what.
Wow. Chocolate therapy.
So when I was visiting, with my sons, I was summer camp.
Chocolate therapy.
Is done.
No matter what.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're doing the right thing.
The line is got is on.
Yeah, wait,
Well, you can have.
That's right. Get chocolate.
I can respect it.
That's what I'm here. Chocolate therapy is registered.
Yeah, that's what
Therapy.
you could do it electronically, or you could put it on the back. You got that. Fight my.
All right. Okay.
Oh, you want to give us
That reminds me of the voting is not, I see, it's a book, that it's like a cell, so you can have, but it's white boy ends up in a community where it's split right down the middle. Black people live on one side, the schools for and he unties a giant fish food is moving in, like a giant, it's a kind of,
Okay, so
but
how do I vote?
it's very. You got
So this is a chocolate.
Like 2 years, one time, I was like,
No, we're at the top here.
That's probably like 2 years.
That are
I've been on it 4 times before you.
Yeah.
The spoiler vote.
And then you go, you gotta
Signing. I don't know. Yeah. That we both connect.
By your.
Yes.
So like,
I know, I've never had, it's gonna create quite a stir. It's like 5 to speak and then little the rest from us. That's taking all of Calvin's well here,
Personally,
so
I
just
love
want to return it.
and I have voted.
Okay, how do we undo it?
You gotta do it.
Yeah. Well, so I would have to get my.
Even if you're.
It's like a new.
I hated to get on this road and driving. Oh my God, I knew it. I could feel it right around the same.
All right. Has everybody voted? Not yet. Not yet? Okay, we've got one more vote coming in. Yeah.
So I don't. I like coffee chocolate.
That's like a.
That is what.
I think she is. I think she is.
I'm trying Okay, Tanya, are we ready?
We're done. Everybody has voted.
Has everybody, have you got the votes on the,
It's up on the screen.
oh, it is? Oh, cool.
So you can watch, and I'm gonna walk you through round by round, what happened. So in our first round, Cherry Garcia won. As you can see, it is over that 50%. But so in this particular election, it would just be over. Cherry Garcia has won. But just to show you what would have happened, we can run the other rounds. So in round 2, we see that these are eliminated. No, why is that not working? Ah, there it is. So you can see how the vote was eliminated and reallocated, but in this particular one, we had a resounding victory with Cherry Garcia. We never would have moved to our next round, but just like Burlington did. So Burlington used ranked choice voting for their special city council election, and the winning candidate did get more than 50% of the vote. But just to see what would happen, they actually ran through the rankings just to see, does it work? Is it difficult? And our Burlington city clerk said it worked really well. Lots of people ranked other candidates, and it wasn't that difficult to go through the process of running the ranked choice election vote. So,
And the key thing about Burlington was that it was done on fairly short order, right?
it was.
So
So
speak to that, because this is one of the things we may hear. Phil,
How did we only get 7 votes out of this?
hold on, ready?
I have no idea. I can't speak for that.
I entered them all in. Oh, hey, look at that, because I didn't refresh the screen. So this will be much better. So actually, Cherry Garcia came just shy of the required 50% in round 1. In round 2,
Interesting.
we have eliminated the lowest vote getting 3, which all had 1, and the votes were reallocated to their second choices, which put Cherry Garcia at 11 and Fish Food at 5. Thank you for pointing out that I needed to refresh our screen. So in fact, we didn't get, it did have to get reallocated, but you'll notice that those 3 were tied for last with 1. They were eliminated and their votes were reallocated. And so it was whoever voted for chocolate fudge brownie as their first choice, their second choice was reallocated. So that is how it works. And yes, in the Burlington city election that happened, Burlington passed a charter change that we approved last biennium. And they were anticipating using it for the first time in March. And then there was a resignation from the city council, but because it was already in statute that was in effect, Burlington had to figure out their ordinances, figure out how they were going to do it, and run that election with very short notice. And they were able to do it very successfully. And again, the city clerk testified to our committee that it wasn't that difficult. Yes.
How would it work in multiple member districts?
Yeah, so it works the same way, though the math is a little more complex, which is where we started here. So you would, do you want to?
But the bill isn't gonna do it.
The bill isn't going to do that.
I think the important thing to know is that the bill would not be, wouldn't be for multiple member districts.
Okay.
So it's just for the presidential primary. And
Okay.
so that would be obviously for allocating the delegates for the conventions. So there's not a multi-member district. So if we were to implement it statewide and it would apply to our races, legislative races, there would be different provisions that we'd have to put in. And I don't want to misspeak on how it would.
I don't either, which is why.
Yeah, so I actually don't want to talk about that at the moment because we haven't actually discussed multi-member districts and how it would work. It does work. There is a way to make it work. And I think it would just be the first and the second choice voter, whoever gets the first and then the second amount of votes, they keep reallocating. But and in the presidential primary, the other thing the bill does is it allows the 2 parties to choose their own methodology, just like they do under current law. The parties have a different methodology for, delegating their delegates. The Republican Party uses winner take all. The Democratic Party uses proportional, so that there are multiple delegates, and those would still be allowed. The parties still decide, and you just use ranked choice voting for either picking one winner or proportional winners. So it doesn't impact individual party decisions.
I had a question, are you talking about how many choices people would get? Is that one of the things the committee's talking about?
Yeah, that is one of the things, like how many choices committee rank. We have new tabulators in Vermont. They're Dominion tabulators. They were specifically bought in order to be able to do ranked choice voting. So they are like the tabulators that you want if you're gonna do ranked choice voting. So you can tabulate a regular ballot, a quote unquote regular ballot, and a ranked choice ballot together at the same time. You can just run them all through and it does it. In terms of the number, that is something that's dependent on the tabulators. And the two numbers that are in my head are 5 and 8. And I can't remember which
So
one.
you only have the choice of those two, you can't do 4.
You could do 4, yeah, you can do 1, just like the video said. If you just want to vote.
Well, no, but you as the committee, as far as, you would, the bill would say the ranking is gonna have a maximum number. Because some places that have ranked choice voting have said, we're gonna just limit to your top 3, even if there's 6 candidates.
Yeah, I think the voting tabulator actually ends up limiting it, and I think it's 5, but it could be 8. Those are the two numbers in my head.
The bill, you're thinking of putting that in.
We haven't gotten that far in terms of, so there's some logistics that still need to be worked out, especially on such a short timeline for a statewide election. But even if you have 20 candidates running for president, which sometimes we do, those 20 candidates could still be listed on the ballot. It's just that you might only get to vote for the top 5 of them instead of 1, which is what we do now. So you still have more choices. Yeah.
Dick McCormick.
I understand ranked choice voting, and I support it. The one place I don't understand how it works is the primary. Because we, the Democrats, Vermont Democrats, send a divided delegation to the convention, divided proportional to the votes.
Right, and ranked choice voting would still work for proportional representation. I think that the cutoff is a candidate needs to get 15%, is that right? And so you would still do ranked choice voting, eliminating anybody who doesn't get 15% threshold. Everybody who gets above the 15% threshold would still get proportionally the number of votes that they got. It's the reallocation of votes would just be for those candidates under the 15% threshold. Yeah, there was more to come as we work out the logistics and details of the bill, but we thought this would be a fun way to introduce you to the concept.
And I just want to say there were 0 spoiled ballots. Everyone ranked their candidates.
Which is great. So thank you. Anything else, Tanya, on your presentation?
I will just say that the reason we focused on the presidential primary is because it's already a little bit separate from our other races, and it tends to be a wide field and a volatile field. So for example, in the 2020 Democratic primary, there were 6,876 votes that were cast for candidates that had withdrawn by election day. And so those are votes that would have been reallocated to other candidates. And that was in the Democratic 2022 primary. So I just wanted to kind of give the information as to why.
So when we talk about wasted votes, 6,876 votes were wasted, basically. Whereas if you'd had a second and third choice.
Right, especially with mail-in ballots and universal mail-in ballots when people vote early.
Right. Okay, this is just, oh, Thomas.
The Burlington City Council race that just happened, do you happen to know how many ballots were spoiled?
I don't, not off the top of my head, but I do have that number in my email from the city clerk, and I can definitely get it to you and the whole caucus if that is helpful, but it was a pretty small number.
But one of the nice opportunities is our ability now to cure cure ballots. You can, particularly if you're in person, you can cure that ballot if you make a big mistake. Yeah. Anybody else?
There are complications in this, in the Jerry Garcia. People might remember that Jerry Garcia sued for copyright infringement after the ice cream was made public. And the Jewish dietary laws, which don't allow the mixing of milk products with animal products, also had to make a decision of whether the red from the beetle wings of beetles from the Andes rendered Jerry Garcia to be unacceptable kosher. And that had to be resolved. So there are still twists that this doesn't solve all the problems.
I voted for fish food.
Right. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Senator Hardy and Vyhovsky. That was terrific. A good indication and a good flavor of what's to come. Senator Bray. Senator Bray would like to a word on S5, and then I think
Sure.
I'll be done.
Thank you. So I'm aware that you're probably getting communications from constituents about Affordable Heat Act, and I just wanted to share some facts because people, I think there's been a fairly active, I'd say, campaign of misinformation or at least misleading information. So one, it's being represented. I don't think people are getting the idea that it's a long transition. It's 2026 to 2050. So it's a long-term switch. I don't think we're going to be, and it will be sort of a smooth glide path is what we're looking for. But a couple things. Under this bill, no fuel dealer will be prevented from selling exactly the fuels they sell for the life of the program. Customer participation is voluntary, and no customer is ever required to switch fuels by this bill. So there's been a lot of impression you're going to get pushed out of this fuel into that fuel, et cetera. And there are some of the information that's flowing into it. Here's one from the Propane Gas Association of New England that I got an email that says, tell lawmakers don't raise energy prices, which I would say, no, they want you to leave that to them.
Yes.
Remind people in the last 2 years, the price bump that Vermonters have paid without ever agreeing to anything is roughly $650 million because of the price. So Vermont, the unaffordable system, the one that's driving prices right now, is not the Affordable Heat Act. And the Affordable Heat Act will, over time, allow people to make individual choices if they are so interested and step out of that fossil fuel powered system that has people getting whipsawed on price year after year, and let them have more control over their own energy future. The name affordable is not just marketing. It is the base of what we're trying to do. People are stuck in a current system that is very pricey, it's unpredictable, and they don't have a way out for the most part. And this is a pathway out over from now through 2050. So much less dramatic and draconian than some of the emails you may be getting. The last thing is there was a 2-pager put out about 3 weeks ago. I'll resend that to people so you have something in hand in case you want to ping that off to recipients, constituents who apply. Also getting an even shorter, a 1-pager that will say, in the last 5 years, had this program been in effect and you had moved over to heat pumps, what would have happened to your wallet in the last 5 years? If you hadn't done that and you were on the current business as usual model of home heating fuel, what would have happened to your wallet? And we'll let the wallets talk as well. So just leave it at that. And thanks for your patience. I know that it's not easy when you start getting pinged with lots of messages. I know that fuel dealers around me are putting inserts into their envelopes, sending and ringing the bell. It says, call your legislators. It's the Unaffordable Heat Act. And I would say that the industry that's selling you fuel at record prices, it's not looking out for your best health financially. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Among your many staffers that you have, Senator Bray, do you have someone who's curating these emails and responding? Because I gave up responding to S5 emails a while ago.
My staff quit. They would get their pay voucher, and that was it. No, I don't, I don't have so that 1-pager that we're putting together, maybe, the kind of thing, if you just want to paste it in and hit respond, that kind of thing to get something back out, because, the business world has a lot of, I run a business. I'm interested in making money. I'm interested in every business making money. It's nothing to do with that. But what is troubling is to have people misleading people about what tax the bill will be. The last thing is on cost. So this is a bugaboo about it. We are the bill we're passing requires the PUC to go through a painstaking process for the next 2+ years, where there's cost estimates next year, year after, and then as part of the actual formal rule that is the bill, there is a economic impact statement is required, as well as other components like environmental impact statement. So we are going to know more about this bill before it would ever go live, this program. But if we don't start now, we will never know how to run it. We will never know what it costs. We will never get going. And we'll leave people on that same whipsaw for fossil fuels forever with no alternative, unless they're relatively, more moderate income people are finding their way out because it's easier for them to make the investments. But this is a way to make sure, especially for the people most energy burdened, low and moderate income owners, have a choice in how to build their way out. But again, those things are at the beginning. If you love fossil fuels, you can stay on that year to eternity, as best I know. Certainly the 25th.
Can I ask?
Attorney, my
Yeah.
I think last year, this might be somewhere and I missed it in all the FAQs and things, but there was a quantification of how many more dollars would stay in the state or some more percentage of
right.
dollars would stay in the state. Have I missed where that is now? Would just be, that's a helpful one.
Yeah, thanks. There's a big difference between in-state energy and out-of-state. And even some of it's regional. So regional power is much more stably priced in general than world oil markets. And then to the extent that we're generating electricity in Vermont to be used for something like a cold climate heat pump, that's money that stays here. And then if you're also growing crops like soybeans, and you're using the soy to make oil that makes biodiesel or biofuel for heating, that's money that also stays here. So I'll get that.
It was like an infographic last year.
Yes, it's in the EAN annual report, and I'll pull that, put that in. Thank you very much for the reminder.
The other thing, Chris, is
Okay.
what it takes to convert. It's just not the comparison of the fuel cost
Right.
type to type, but people are emailing, and it actually have to switch, but we're talking about really significant investments,
Right.
$35,000-$40,000. So,
Yeah, for a very full project.
Yeah.
The other thing, and thank you for asking that question, it reminds me also, there's been a fair amount of pushback. Oh, if you go to a cold climate heat pump.
Chris, could you stand up and be louder so that the.
There are people who say, oh, you're gonna be cold if you go to a cold climate heat pump, and why would you ever just get rid of fossil fuels? We've been interviewing everyone who comes through, including the roughly 15 or so fuel dealers that we're in. And they don't recommend you take out your old heating system. They say, leave it. This is a complementary system. And the idea is that you will, for most of the winter, it may be entirely, if your house is well insulated, it might very well cover your house, all your heating needs. If it's an older house that's leakier and draftier, then it may not cover you on the very coldest night. You would still rely on that old fossil fuel system. The program never tells you to rip out your old system to put in a new one. And so some people are feeling like they don't want to abandon what they have and they know. But the program never contemplates doing that. So thank you, everyone. If you have more.
We'll have much more on this. The bill has just gone to appropriations and it will be being dealt with over the next week and a half or so. So more to follow on this. Thank you to senators who shared their responses. Thank you to Senator Watson. And I know a bunch of other of you have very thoughtful responses that have been helpful for many of us. So more to follow. Thank you all very much. Here's to the afternoon committees. Thank you. Bill, safe traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've got to